Sleep 2 Business Genius, Business History, Fact number 14 of 107-minute read. Control the gold, control the world. For 2 centuries, the dominant economic idea of Europe was simple and ruthless. Wealth is fixed, trade is war, and the goal of every nation is to accumulate as much gold and silver as possible. It was called mercantilism, and it shaped the modern world. By Sleep to Business Genius, Business History of Europe, 15th to 16th centuries. A globe encircled by trade flows, with a treasury of gold at its base, the mercantilist vision of a world where nations competed ruthlessly to accumulate wealth at each other's expense. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts drift. And consider an idea that once seemed like common sense and shaped the modern world before being proved wrong. The idea is this: wealth is a fixed quantity. The world contains a certain amount of gold and silver. If one nation has more, another must have less. Trade, therefore, is not a cooperative exchange from which both sides can benefit. It is a competition, a zero-sum game, in which the winners take gold and the losers fall behind. The role of government is to ensure that your nation always wins. This was mercantilism. And for roughly 2 centuries, from the 15th to the 17th century, it was the unquestioned economic philosophy of every major European power. Mercantilism made trade feel like warfare and warfare feel like trade. Nations competed for markets, colonies, and precious metals with the same ferocity they brought to fighting each other on the battlefield, because in the mercantilist view, they were doing the same thing. The logic of accumulation. Europe u 1500s, 1700s, the theory behind colonial expansion. The mercantilist framework rested on a set of interlocking policies. Governments sought to maximize exports and minimize imports, keeping as much gold as possible inside their borders. They subsidized domestic manufacturing to reduce dependence on foreign goods. They imposed tariffs on imports to protect home industries. They established colonies whose role was to supply raw materials cheaply and absorb manufactured exports. This logic drove the great age of European colonial expansion. Spain and Portugal poured resources into the Americas, extracting silver and gold from mines worked by enslaved indigenous people. England, France, and the Netherlands established plantation colonies in the Caribbean and Americas, producing sugar, tobacco, and cotton for export to the mother country. The colonized world was organized, explicitly and legally, as an engine of wealth extraction for European states. Mercantilism and the slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade was, in part, a mercantilist enterprise. The triangular trade, manufactured goods from Europe to Africa, enslaved people from Africa to the Americas, and raw commodities from the Americas back to Europe, was designed to maximize the extraction of value at every leg of the journey. Mercantilist logic provided the economic justification for one of history's greatest atrocities. The wealth it generated funded the Industrial Revolution. The Navigation Acts and economic nationalism. England's Navigation Acts, passed from 1651 onwards, were mercantilism in legislative form. They required that goods traded with English colonies be carried only on English ships, crewed largely by English sailors. The aim was to ensure that the profits of colonial trade stayed within the English economic system rather than flowing to Dutch or French competitors. These laws created enormous resentment in the American colonies, which were prevented from trading freely with other nations. The restriction of colonial commerce was one of the grievances that eventually fed the American Revolution. Even as mercantilism was being challenged by new economic thinking in Europe, its consequences were reshaping the political map of the world. Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, delivered the most systematic demolition of mercantilist thinking. Wealth, Smith argued, was not gold but productive capacity. Trade was not zero-sum but mutually beneficial. The accumulation of precious metal was a symptom of a wealthy economy, not its cause. Mercantilism was not just wrong, it was actively harmful, distorting production and impoverishing consumers to benefit a narrow class of merchants and manufacturers. Mercantilism built an empire, and the revolt against it built a new world of economics in its place. Tags: Mercantilism, Economic History, Colonial Trade Navigation Acts, Adam Smith, A Business History, A European Expansion, Sleep Learning, Economic Philosophy. Sleep to Business Genius weaves 100 fascinating business history facts into soothing, story-driven narratives. This is fact number 14 of 100. Part of 100 Facts About Business to Fall Asleep To, available as a full narrated video on YouTube.